So have you got any particular questions about feeding?
I guess Claire's biggest problem is burping. So apart from different positions in trying to burp her, whether there's any techniques I can use while feeding to reduce the amount of burps.
Okay, so what have you tried so far?
Just burping after a feed, just trying sitting
in
up.
between sides?
In between sides, yeah.
So you do one side and have a burp and then the other side and have a burp. And that's sort of traditionally what we're taught to do.
Yeah.
Have you got a really fast milk flow?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so does she gulp a bit?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So what it might be is that she's gulping really fast and she is starting to manage it, and most babies begin to manage it. But at first, when you first start breastfeeding, you know, both you and your baby are sort of having to adjust and start to manage it. And as your baby gets older, she does manage the flow better, and she'll learn how to slow it down herself and take a break when she needs to. Have you tried letting her have a break when she asks for a break?
I don't really know what you mean.
Okay, what babies do, and this is really normal, is that they suck for a little while and then they have a pause, and then they suck for a little while and then they have a pause. And what often happens is your baby will pull off. Does she do that?
Sometimes.
And maybe she's giving you what's called a non-verbal cue that she's ready to take a break, and that might be when you can sit her up and she might bring up a burp for you, rather than going the whole feed.
Okay.
Because it may be that she just needs several little breaks and several little burps, rather than just a big one at the end. And the other thing I noticed was you were feeding earlier, is that when you put her up over your shoulder and she burped, that she brought up a little bit of milk, and that tastes a bit sour. And that's just because when they're so little, the muscle at the top of their tummy doesn't kind of close as well as what it will eventually, and sometimes a bit of milk comes up and that sour flavour tastes yucky, and she may not like that. She may have learned even now that that's not a very nice feeling. So she may be trying to hold back.
Okay.
So maybe some more frequent burps as she gives you the message, because babies are really clever. They do give you messages, and that's all their non-verbal cues. So if you watch really carefully, she'll tell you.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have problems, any of those sorts of problems with bottle feeding?
Just making sure he's not taking in air with the formula. So always, I think the best thing to do is have the bottle tipped right up.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have much trouble with burping.
So when you say the bottle being tipped up, you mean so that the teat's fully covered by milk, so that there's no, that's really important, isn't it? And sometimes adjusting the top of the bottle, the screw top, so it goes faster or slower. And often, depending on what part of the feed you're in, he might like it faster or slower. So you just kind of have to adjust it, don't you, a little bit. And all you do is by loosening the top or tightening the top of the bottle. But keeping it all covered is really important. And does he like frequent breaks?
He's a bit of a guzzler.
Okay.
He'll just plough through. Might have a bit of a break in the middle of the feed and have a bit of a burp.
Because he'll give you an indication too when he's ready for a break. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, he's even starting to bat away the bottle or stick it out with his tongue. If he's
so
had
he's
enough.
13 weeks, isn't he? So he's really starting to be able to give you some messages that, you know, he needs a break now. Because at around 12 weeks, their hands, he has more control over his hands as well. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
And he's looking at his hands, checking them out. Yeah, it's called hand regard. So he will be able to do a little bit more to let you know that, you know, he wants to take a break. And but some babies do that, and I guess when you first started bottle feeding, you got all kinds of messages about this is how you bottle feed, and all babies feed the same.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing.
Yeah, not all babies feed the same. They're like us, you know, we all eat differently and enjoy different foods, so it's really important to find out what works best for your baby. Do you know how to tell when your baby's hungry?
They cry.
Yeah, they cry. Any other signs that you've noticed?
Mouthing.
Yeah, a bit of mouthing.
Or sucking.
On their hands, yeah. Noticed anything else?
No.
and it's true, we don't often tell mums when they think their babies are ready for, but when babies are saying I'm hungry, they do those things, they mouth and they cry, but what they also do is their body gets really flexed, like they'll fist and they'll hold their hands right up under their chin and they'll mouth and they'll kind of be, their bodies will be all flexed and maybe even looking forward. Fussing a little bit. So you have a whole cluster of signs that your baby's saying I'm hungry, and they're called hunger cues. And then once you start feeding and your baby's enjoying the feed and settling down a little bit, their hands move over their tummy and they relax a little bit. And then at the end of the feed, the way that you can tell your baby's probably had enough is that they relax and their hands they're open and their arms are straight down by the side of them, and they're much more relaxed and they might push away a little bit. And sort of that's how it looks like that they've had enough. And that's just to say that it might be that they've had enough for that moment, but they may need a little bit more after they've had a break.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they start flexing up again, you know that they're ready to have a bit more. So those are the sort of signals that baby give you, that when they're ready for a feed.
Yeah.